It's Wednesday, April 9th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today on the show, 7 years in the making, we're talking about the local film Skeet, the story behind its creation, the making of it, its depiction of the changing face of St. John's, and why it's important for work and art to capture something like this. Before we get to the show, folks, provincial budget just around the corner, live 2 p.m. Island time, half an hour earlier, most of Labrador. We're going to have it right here on CBC Radio, so don't go anywhere if you want to listen to it. Also on cbc.ca/NL if you want to watch it. And this show, The Signal, will have a full reaction show tomorrow about the budget, and I'll say a little bit more at the end of the show for that. But let's get on to talking about Skeet. I'm very, very happy to do this show today. I've been wanting to do the show. Nik Sexton, I've been wanting to do the show since last time we chatted because you're on the phone.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I mean, I'm thrilled to be here in my hometown of St. John's with people I love.
It's and speaking of some of those people, so we've got Mary Sexton here, executive producer, president of Rink Rat Productions, Sean Dalton, lead actor, and Eyad Sakkar, story consultant. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
First off, there's tickets available, right? Because this thing, I was like, oh, it's sold out. There's like you can go see the movie, home launch, and then all of a sudden, there's extra tickets. So let's get a blast out first, shall we?
Yes, well, it was sort of piecemeal, but now we have two matinees on Friday, 1:40 and 4:40, and then a screening in the evening at 7 p.m. and another one at 10, which we'll be doing Q&A at. And then it's full lineup Saturday right through to Thursday, and hopefully we get to sell it out and get an extended.
How you feeling about that?
I'm feeling pretty positive.
All right. So if we were to go back to when this thing was first thought about, like to look back at the whole history of it, and now to be here, you're sitting down talking about it, doing a blast on radio, saying, "Hey, here it is. It's been award. We've got some great award noms happening here, right?" How's that for treating you guys?
I think I could have got a law degree by now. I think I could have chose another profession and gone to wrote a thesis. I never would have thought it would take this long to make this film, but I'm glad looking back, I'm glad at every turn kind of how it went, especially with the end result. Mm-hmm. Sean and I sort of conceptualized the idea. We shot these character tests 7 years ago. We tested the black and white. We talked about the characters, and we built this world. And Nigel, our cinematographer, he followed us around with the camera 7 years ago. And then all that footage ended up in the film, and it's this great backstory. And Mary supported our vision from day one and helped us get development funds to shoot those backstory footage. And then when we rebroke the story and we went to these neighborhoods 7 years ago, and we saw that these neighborhoods were changing into these much more dynamic, this new Newfoundland we saw with a Muslim population. I met Eyad, and Eyad became a catalyst to the new version of the film and this new story that was far more interesting than I think of, Sean, of just skeets beating each other up on doorsteps. But again, that was the genesis of the idea, and then we just sort of branched out from the character.
All right. Well, then, so the initial story, the initial idea for the movie, before you go to the neighborhood and you're like, hey, stuff's been changing in St. John's. We should actually flesh this out and think about it a bit more. What was the initial concept? Sean?
Yeah, Sean.
What was in your mind for the initial concept?
I don't know what we were kind of, I don't know, we were watching, like, we love movies like The Departed, and we loved Raging Bull, and we loved, and we were just kind of, I was thinking, wouldn't it be great to show like the dark side, or the rough side of St. John's. And then, years later, Nik came up to me and said, I got this idea, and he came up with a story that was, I thought, just more fleshed out and more beautiful and more hopeful than the dark kind of, the dark concept that I was kind of thinking of.
But then the dark concept remained because that became the backstory.
Yeah.
So the stuff we shot 7 years ago, we wove that into the DNA of the new script.
So give us a line then for folks who, and I know this has been talked about for a bit, obviously, but there are folks who may not know the storyline. Would you give us the brief synopsis for the film?
Absolutely. I mean, the log line of the film would be, after 3 years of prison, Billy Skinner returns home to his low-income neighborhood where it's been populated by Syrian refugees, and he's basically a fish out of water in his new home as he tries to rebuild his life.
Right.
And I think back to what Sean was saying about the story, and trying to come up with the idea for this film, we wanted to make a film that was, this place is predominantly known for its colorful, saturated jelly bean homes and cinematic landscapes with ocean stuff. We wanted to turn the camera inward. We wanted to shine the light on a population that doesn't get much shine.
And why the name Skeet, folks?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious when you see the film or the trailer that that people, I think everyone in St. John's loves to do their Skeet impersonation. Everyone has a Skeet impersonation. They put it on, and it's very talked about. But I think there's something endearing about these characters, and I think that there's something that me and Sean tapped into, that we grew up around these types that often didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
And we were always rooting for them.
Yeah, then because in parts of town, these are folks in a way you looked up to them growing up, or you knew about them. They're kind of infamous around town, and then yes, everything you're saying.
Yeah, and Sean, Sean can speak to tapping into Billy's character.
Yeah, we just kind of wanted to, tap into the emotional depth of this guy, that he's more than just a thug, that he's, there's a soul.
Layered character.
Absolutely. Yeah, multi-layered, multifaceted.
Yeah, three-dimensional character. And I think, we were terrified of some of these guys growing up. But at the same time, we were also their friends. But we also didn't know, some of them come from, really difficult families. And we sort of saw that generational thing where their dad might have been in jail, so they're going to be in jail. And then this becomes this cyclical, vicious cycle of incarceration. So you want these people to have a chance, especially because a lot of them have big hearts.
Newfoundland and Labrador. We did a show a while ago, and this was brought up by one of the guests. When you talk about communities in Newfoundland and Labrador, depending on, it could be now, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, whenever, trauma and poverty, these are themes that are easy to find in any community. And then you get these stories and you see these offshoots. So the folks you're talking about growing up, some because of luck for most of us in families, they end up being okay, and others go that other direction. We end up in jail and whatever else, and you continue living with that intergenerational trauma. So this is why this type of a movie, to dig into that, I find fascinating. And then you go into this part of town and you see how it's changed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like getting the call from the crowd here, Eyad?
We met through Ken, our mutual friend, and I was excited. I didn't think much of it until Nik and myself and my dad met. And then Dad said, no, you definitely need to do this. I was busy at the time. I was doing, juggling a few things. And he said, my dad, no, I have a good feeling about it, and you can help. He said, yeah, I can help. He said, well, I'll help you if we can all sit together. And we did, and felt good.
Yeah. What were the initial conversations then around the story?
I don't remember exactly how the first conversation went, but I know we talked over the phone a couple of times. Do you remember, Nik?
I remember, I remember Ken Walsh, who worked for Association of New Canadians, introduced us. He said, I got the guy, Eyad. and I said, okay, cool. So I think I looked him up on Facebook, and then I was like, oh yeah, he seems good. And then Ken gave us the number. And I remember us talking about the story and talking about, because Eyad had helped with Association for New Canadians. He'd been here. He's a Newfoundland Syrian who'd been here for years. And he helped receive. I think you helped receive a lot of Syrians after the war.
That's correct. That's correct. Myself and my brother used to translate for the newcomers who didn't speak English, and I was one of them back in 2008 when I moved to Newfoundland. So I felt obligated to help when I could help, and the Association for New Canadians was a great platform for that.
Yeah.
So this is how I met Ken, and then me and Ken, met Nik. So it was a great opportunity, and I felt that I could help, and I'm glad I'm sitting here with you guys.
Yeah, if I recall, I think I described the new script to you, the outline of the new script, and I said there's this character named Muhammad, and you said, well, his name would be Mo if he's Muhammad, and I said, yeah, and then I said his son plays soccer, and you go, I play soccer. And then we started talking about, because my son plays soccer, and we started talking about soccer and how you played at the Dome down by Kitty Vitty. And then Eyad, as a consultant, wrote some of the best stuff in the script. Like, if you don't mind me telling the story, one of my favorite moments when we got together and actually started breaking down like the story, you said, Nick, when I first moved here, I'd have friends over, the Newfoundlander friends, and I'd say, I'm going to make you a beautiful Syrian meal. Yeah. And they'd all say, what's that, like curry or something? Yeah. And when you said that to me, I remember laughing, and I was like, this is so good. This is definitely going in. And it's I've sat through, I think, 6 or 7 screenings of the film, and it gets the biggest laugh in the film every time.
And the funny part is I didn't even know what curry is as a spice until I moved out of Syria. So, yeah.
Yeah, and those little nuggets of like just culture, and there's some dark stuff too. There's some things that that we explore in the film that are nice little moments like that. But I remember that was a thing that we talked about. You'd read the script, right away, which was like, it's sometimes you send a script, takes someone months to get back to you. Eyad read it right away, had notes, called me with them. We sat at a coffee shop with him and his father, and of course, I tend to cast a lot of first-time actors or people that have never been on screen, and I'm sort of sizing Eyad up, and I go, you could be Mo, man, and he's like, no, and he talks to his father. They speak to each other in Arabic, and I don't know what they're talking about, and they goes, I have a name for you, and he goes, Jihad Abdo, and I go, okay, I don't know. And he goes, who's this guy? And then they give me the name, and I watch this news story, the CBC news story with this actor. Who, this big Middle Eastern actor who was forced to leave Syria and seek refuge in Los Angeles, and was, went from a big star to delivering pizzas for Domino's. Right. And then, like Mo in the story, had to rebuild his life. And next thing you know, he's in a Nicole Kidman film with Werner Herzog directing. He's in a Tom Hanks film. And I was looking at this going, I don't know, Eyad, man. I don't know if he's going to want to come to Newfoundland and do this. So, yeah, and then Mary got involved, and we sent a letter to his Beverly Hills agent, and I think, and your father was the catalyst. I think your father knew right away, like when we said who would play this guy, your father tapped right away. Central casting, your father. And
if you talk to any guy or lady from the Middle East, they know who Jay Abdo is, and if you see him on the street, you're going to stop him and take a selfie with him and post it on your social media, because he's one of the biggest stars in the Middle East.
There's a great lesson here for folks too, by the way, of just ask, right? Like ask. It's like, oh, we just got the most known actor out of the Middle, like for Syrian actors on the planet.
Yeah. Oh, it was wild.
Yeah. When we went to Chalker Place, and of course, we didn't speak Arabic, and we didn't have a translator with us, and we'd go to the door and we'd knock on the doors and just say that this is what we were hoping to accomplish. And Nick would get out his phone and show Jay Abdo the picture. It was like we were showing Brad Pitt. Yeah. And they'd come in, have tea.
Yeah, we were location scouting, trying to get in this home, and they were very kind, but. Kind of cold at first. And then,
weird. You get folks coming to your door. It's like, you want to do what? Huh? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like,
you show this picture, and then all of a sudden, doors open up immediately. I mean, Sean. I remember, in prep, Sean. We told him about Jay, and then I don't think you realized until you saw, the people in Chalker Place coming up, and he was kissing babies and.
He was a complete star. We were, Nick and I were, we saw people running towards us. We were like, "Oh, here they come." And they just blew by us and ran up to him, getting pictures. Could you kiss my baby? And we were like, who is this dude?
What was it like working with an actor of that caliber?
It was the easiest thing. Like, I mean, this is my first rodeo, right?
Yeah.
And not his.
So tell folks a bit just about your backstory and into this, because I think all that is really interesting for what unfolds, right?
Yeah. So I played in a rock band called The Trues for 15 years. Quit in 2015, moved back to Antigonish, Nova Scotia, set up a business there for 7-8 years. Met my wife, Tammy Orr, and she came down to Antigonish, and we moved to BC a year and a half ago. And Yeah, somehow shot a movie in there somewhere.
So that's your life, and then this movie comes in, and you're working with a world famous actor.
Yeah, well, it was, I got all credit to Nick for keeping me in mind. But working with a guy like that, I mean, he made it easy for me. I mean, you could tell he's done this in his sleep, right? So it was completely natural, and we became buddies. We became fast friends. Like in minutes, it was just like, oh, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I have videos on my phone of rehearsals with Sean and Jay. Like Jay came in right away, and generous, like didn't question rehearsals. He's like immediately. Myself and Sean, I think were looking at locations, and I remember Jay went to Hamza's house, which is Mahmoud's home, and he started rehearsing with the boy immediately because he knew that the boy was a first-time actor and he wanted him to get comfortable with him. So like the guy flew all the way from Los Angeles to Newfoundland, and before doing anything, he went right to rehearsals with the boy who plays his son in the film. So it's just a definitely a level of involvement and dedication.
Tell us a bit about Mahmoud.
Mahmoud is a funny story because I came back and I had a few months prep, and in the script I talked with Eyad about it. We said this kid who plays the son, he has to be a good soccer player. He has to be able to do keep ups like more than 5. He had to keep the ball in the air, and he's got to be trained. His dad's got to be training him to be this soccer player. And then I think we started reaching out to St. John's Soccer, and I found myself scouting at King George Field looking for this elusive Mahmoud who was a refugee, son of these refugee family. Safa's Kitchen at the St. John's Farmers Market. That's his mother.
Oh, right. Safa's been on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. So Safa, Mahmoud that's his mother, and I'd heard about this kid. And John Devereaux was the coach, and I should mention Dina Burke, who's my friend Joey's sister. She put me in touch with John, and John was the coach of this team. And he goes, "Yeah, Mahmoud's on the team." He goes, "Why don't you come out and watch him play?" So I became this sort of weird dude in the stands watching this kid, and I have a video on my phone as well of meeting Mahmoud and asking him questions and having him do keep ups. And we keep in touch with Safa. My mom and I were just there 2 nights ago, Eid Mubarak, and we had dinner there, and she goes, Mahmoud tells the story. He goes, "Do you remember, Mom? I came home and said some guy wants to put me in a movie," and they all thought he was crazy. And he's like,
RNT's on the line, right?
Or is this some predator? Like, what's going on? So yeah. And then it turned out to be a real thing. So yeah, he was great. He's got these really endearing eyes, and I think when you watch the film, you really feel that real experience with Hamza and Mahmoud. He's great in the film.
Looking at the film now, right? So we're talking about extra tickets available. It's being screened across the country. What I find interesting about this type of piece of art, this work that's done, and I said it in the introduction to the show, you're looking at a place and time for a city and a province that's changing, right? What are your thoughts on looking at the finished work and how it recognizes where we are and where we're moving through? Because it's so easy to not have that and to just all of a sudden be somewhere else and be like, oh, there's a lot of changes. But you're acknowledging something that I think is really important. What do you think about that and being that and having that out there?
Well, we decided to shoot it black and white because we wanted to feel timeless.
Yeah.
We want to watch this film in 10 years and feel like it hasn't changed, this place produces some of the best talent in the country, and the shows here are fantastic. Everything's fantastic. I'm in awe all the time of the talent out of here, and we wanted to make something a little different. And we wanted, someone coined it, I think, Newfoundland realism.
Yeah.
We wanted it to feel like this
Authentic.
Yeah, I guess authentic. I guess we just wanted it to feel real. We wanted to feel like every moment. We didn't want it to have a false note in the whole thing or felt like it had been written. I give a lot of actors a runway for improvisation, on set. So if first-time actors on set and the lines we wrote aren't working, then we rework them, we rejig them. So I feel like there's a lot of authenticity to this film. I think the messages of this film are hard, and I think that they're real, and I think that they're things we should talk about. I think that there's. I really hope that someone like Mahmoud or someone of his generation watches this film and because there's a great Middle Eastern filmmaker comes out of Newfoundland from watching it, or gets inspired to go make a short film, or go make TV or podcast or something. Inspire. I mean, I think we all make art to try to inspire others, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I think people laugh at the title sometimes. They think it's a joke, and I'm fine with that. I come from comedy, you know what I mean? But I think in the end, when you watch this film, I think you'll realize there's a lot more to it than just the name, the title, Skeet.
Yeah, and I think as well that when you watch this film, you actually look in the mirror and start to realize maybe I do have a bit of racism in me. Maybe I am a bit prejudiced.
Yeah.
Maybe I have a a stigma that I feel about certain people and certain their economic wealth or what they have, and judging. And I think trying to actually be a little kinder to people that aren't as fortunate, because let's face it, we are white privilege, and not everybody has that. Not everybody has access to good food, good health, good dental, good eye care. It's something that I think that people really need to, because Newfoundlanders will constantly say, "Oh no, I'm not racist," but.
But
and it's that showing that light and looking at and taking a note from this film that maybe I should be less judgmental.
Yeah. Well, and so you the intersections, right? The newcomer intersections, the that word Skeet and the thought around the socioeconomic backgrounds of folks, and then to take a beat and think, right? Sean, what are your
Show some
thoughts
kindness.
on this?
I mean, yeah, I think Nik made a movie about truth and beauty and hope, and I think that was really all him. I mean, I had crazy other ideas. I was thinking just an all-out knock him down, drag it, just a super dark, film noir, and he threw this at me, and I was like, this completely dwarfs anything I had. It was,
cool.
All credit to Nicky.
Yeah. When you folks screened this, right? Was it at the Majestic? You had subtitles too.
We had an Arabic screening. We had the film subtitled in Arabic, and we talked to Association for New Canadians, and we talked to the Arab community, and we had a matinee full screening, and it was really lovely, because someone like Mahmoud's father is hard of hearing, and he doesn't speak English, so he got to enjoy the film and watch his son in the film, because otherwise he'd just be in the audience, not knowing what's going on. So it was really lovely to have that screen. So that always will exist. That copy of the film will exist with Arabic subtitles.
What did that mean to the Syrian diaspora, Eyad, to have the subtitled, and then just for the movie and everything involved with it, for looking at it afterwards?
We got really good feedback from the families we talked to, and for the Syrian community, they truly loved it, and I think what Nik did with the subtitle was a great idea, and they're asking if they can do more of that stuff. I said, well, you need to talk to Nik; he's the boss.
Well, it's funny because Jay in the film. In the film, of course, Jay says to Bill, or Mo says to Billy, imagine you can't go home. Well, Jay Abdo right now is in Damascus, Syria.
Right,
so
yes,
since
the regime is fallen, and it's a rebirth, and everyone's trying to figure out what the future Syria is.
Yeah. And Jay's told us that he's going to bring the film to Damascus to play there.
That's wild.
So I think that's interesting, and I think that having that Arabic version is perfect to have for Damascus, So the film, I don't think about the film just inside of Newfoundland. I think about it more of on a global point of view as well.
Yeah.
And especially when you have someone like Jay Abdo in the movie, not only Syrian community is going to watch that movie, it's going to be the whole Middle East. So that's going to be a huge exposure when you have it with Arabic subtitle with Jay Abdo in it from Canada, because obviously we're not going to talk about politics, but everyone loves Canadians, and everyone wants to watch the Canadian movie, especially in the Middle East.
Yeah. What, for yourself, right, looking at the story being told, and then having that story brought back to Syria, I mean, that seems awfully special in a way. What are your thoughts on
it?
On
is
that?
It is special, and I'm just going to touch back on a question you asked earlier. When for someone like me who came here I didn't speak English. I remember when first week for me here, I was crying every night.
Yeah.
I didn't speak the language. I had no friends, and I was ready to pack up and go back to what I'm familiar with and comfortable with. And one of the reasons I wanted this movie to be successful, so no other, well, each one has a story, but the less pain that new immigrants have to go through, the better. And hopefully this movie is going to help with that.
Yeah, to feel seen and heard, and to have your story or a story similar to yours on the big screen. That's there, like that. The movie's not going anywhere. It is established, and this story is now part of the history of the province, the history of some of the Syrian people. And you can watch it in Damascus, you can watch it in St. John's. I mean, that's something.
It is special, and I'm very proud of it, honestly.
That's nice to hear.
I'm really moved over here. Sorry. Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we sat in Safa's house the other night, I looked around and I think she has 5 children now, and this is the future of Newfoundland. They now pray. They go to mosque at where Mary Queen of Peace is now.
Yeah, new mosque just opened. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's like I'm looking at a family 30, 40 years ago, like an Irish Catholic family with a pile of kids and funny, and every kid has this character, and it's a wild house, and they're going to the same church my nan went to, and they're same prayer. I was like, this is, and we just drove by the school right there. You know, there's kids from all over the world and playing in that playground right now. Newfoundland's changing, and we have to look. You know, there's 10,000 Middle Eastern Newfoundlanders right now, and they, you know, I think that people like Hamza or Mahmoud need to see themselves in characters.
Yeah. And it was interesting because they have a new baby, and they were like paying past the baby. It was like, it reminded me of our family, our big dysfunctional Irish Catholic family, the Sextons, and they were doing the exact same things that we would have been doing, you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago, which is amazing.
We got a note. Let me see. Ann Budgell, who used to sit in this chair. Hi, Ann, by the way. Hi, Adam. I know you have a studio full of interesting people, so callers probably won't get a look in today. We're taking messages today, given the full house. So, folks, I will say, and I'll finish reading Ann's note. If you got thoughts on this show, thesignal@cbc.ca, or you can text us 709-327-8206. And the rest of Ann's note says, I wanted to say that I've seen the film and I love the film. They did such a great job on the story, the acting, cinematography, the works. I urge people to see it. They'll come out feeling better about our city and our world. From Ann Budgell to everyone here. And folks, this is The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. We are talking about the film Skeet, which is doing a tour across the country. You can get tickets here in St. John's to go see it. Here with me in studio, we've got Nik Sexton, director and writer, Mary Sexton, executive producer, Sean Dalton, lead actor, Eyad Sakkar, story consultant and writer. What's it been like on the whole film circuity thingy that I have no idea about? Hence the awkward phrasing of it. What's that been like with this?
Well, it launches Friday.
Yeah.
You know, this is the, you know, the festival circuit is, you know, a long slog.
Yeah.
As you know, it's been a year, so I feel bad sometimes because people want to see the film and it takes so long. But this Friday is when the public can see it for the first time.
Here we go.
This really is. So I'm thrilled that Cineplex has added all these new shows because, you know, we got a lot of cousins, and they need tickets to go see the movie,
It's
right?
such the case with Newfoundland and Labrador and families, right? It's like we
And
need
Newfoundlanders
seats.
love watching Newfoundland films. They love watching Newfoundland television. They love watching anything that has anything to do with Newfoundland. You know, I used to say if all the Newfoundlanders came back, Newfoundland would sink because there's so many Newfoundlanders all across this great world.
I'm looking at the for the Canadian Screen Awards, right? So congrats, Sean, on your nomination. I've also got the picture of everyone else you're nominated with, and like Carrie Ann Moss is nominated here, Britt Lauer, Sebastian Stan. Like your face is up there with some here's the. I mean, there's some pretty fancy people in the. Like, how does it feel to be
Oscar-nominated people?
Yeah, these are like big folks. How does it feel to be in like that? I think I just broke my computer monitor. So sorry, Chrissy Holmes, for later. Anyways, as I turn that around, what's it like to be in a crowd like this, to be recognized for your work?
It was completely unexpected. You know, when Nick and I were kind of, Nick and I were, me and Nick, we talk 3 times a day. It doesn't matter what it's about. And, last minute we were thinking, there's no real, like, I'm not an actor, and the movie's in black and white. Like, we're kind of going like, maybe did we mess this? Like, is this crazy?
Yeah.
And now that it's getting some eyeballs and getting some attention, we're thinking, okay, well, I guess we trusted our instincts and we were maybe right about something.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of a nomination, and it's not like you've been acting for decades or something. Like, to come into a role like this and then to get nominated for it, like, where's your acting head at around like just the process you went through and your own development as professionally?
I don't know. It's, well, Nick and I grew up with a lot of Billies. We grew up with these guys. So like we were, and anybody that's from Newfoundland knows that it's like like comedy is king here. So we were always jamming with these guys and doing impressions of each other, making fun of each other, and it's just something we've been doing our whole lives.
Yeah.
So it kind of came naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean tapped into, like, he had a hit on Billy right away.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, I think that 2015, I have a video on my phone, is take your shirt off and show me Billy Skinner.
Yeah.
And he did. Yeah. and he was casted on the spot. It's been, and then we just kept developing these characters. I tend to do that in all the films. Like, I did a comedy thing called Donnie Dumphy and How to Be Deadly. And I have years of footage of just following Donnie Dumphy around before we actually did anything with it. So it's I look back at my own patterns and go, oh, I do that. I tend to go around with people and just film them, and then the wheels start going for the world, and then it's world building, and then it's okay. So who's Billy's mom? Who's Billy's? Who's Mo? And I think that's when you got to start creating the world in your head. But Sean's performance, he's very humble here, but it's transformative in a way. Like I watched it obviously hundreds of times because of editing and whatnot, and there's really not a false note in it.
No, exactly. And usually Nick goes into my closet and takes clothes out to help his
we said we wouldn't talk about that.
No, go on.
Yeah, but the fact that Sean is nominated in the same category with Carrie Ann Moss, that's massive. I mean, she's
Mrs. from The Matrix, right?
Matrix. I mean, maybe that's your next movie if The Matrix has another movie on the go.
It's so, because I was getting ready for the show, right? So I knew you were nominated, and I was kind of like, okay, who's the who are the people not? Okay, yeah, Carrie Ann Moss, Britt Lauer, who's in Severance, right?
Yeah.
Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice. Like, it's these are some pretty big names, and then just thinking of what that means for the attention on the role, the film, the national run of it, and then it boils down to that story that gets told, right? A story that the country can realize of what's been happening at St. John's.
Well, I think the nomination too has definitely revived my belief in a fair process, because these are huge stars, and when you put you put the video in and you submit for the Canadian Screen Awards, you don't know if it's like a friends club, you don't know but for Sean to get nominated, I think that really speaks to people, the jury or the Academy watching and taking note of his performance. And I think that that again, that reinvigorates my belief in a democratic process, I guess.
Yeah. And we're also nominated in Germany. Nick is nominated for Best Direction in Germany, and the film's for Best Production.
Yeah, there's a German film
Festival.
German Film Festival. I'm not sure we're supposed to say that yet, Mary, but there's a German Film Festival coming up in Germany, and
We'll just edit that out afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
It's not like we're live.
No, look, I mean, the awards, the festivals, the nominations are one thing, but I think the real juice is in when someone comes out of the screening and they're affected by the film.
Yeah. What's it take to get a movie made these days?
A
Mary?
miracle. A miracle. And a big bag of money. No, it takes having, a good story to start with. Because you can't fix it unless it's written.
Yeah.
And if it's written, you can pretty well, it can run the gamut. Sometimes if it's not written properly, you think if you put money to it, or if you put more acting towards it, or if you put things towards it. But getting to the genesis of it is having good script. And Nick really took the time and worked on this script he kind of drove me a little crazy, in fact, because he would, he'd work it, and then he'd say, "Did you read this new draft?" And it was like, "Jesus, Nick, you just sent me the." But it's we're very fortunate here in Newfoundland that we have Picture NL, and they've been supporting Nick and my endeavors for quite some time, and we have Telefilm Canada, but it's putting the right financial structure to it. A film like this, an independent film that is feature length, is it takes blood, sweat, and tears, and you end up not getting paid. You put your money into the film to get it to camera, and then you just hope that you'll at least get your money back, or at least that the world gets to see it. So it's not for the faint at heart to make a feature film. It takes a lot of time and effort, and like Nick said, it was like 7 years in the process. We did I truly believe in a little sizzle reels, or like a mini film, to sort of get the appetite warmed up for it, and then go to the funders to get the film itself made. We're very lucky here in Newfoundland. We have a lot of television happening, and television seems to have, it has the money behind it. So feature films, and I'm really glad now that COVID is over, people are actually going back to the theater, and there is something to be said for, you turn off your phone, you're in a room, you're in a room with other people, and you actually get to, enjoy the film and have the experience of the film.
It's the last place on earth that people put their phones away in a dark room for 2 hours. I mean, I got on a Porter airplane. They go, "We have free Wi-Fi." I go, "No, I don't want the free Wi-Fi. This is where I usually get my writing done and all my stuff." And yeah, you're right. It's the last place on earth where people actually sit and focus on a story.
Yeah, you got to turn it off, and you're actually there. You're not on your couch binge watching Netflix. Adam Walsh, like
second
Saturday, right?
Second screen. I'm guilty of it. You're watching something. You're checking your phone. You lock in.
You're going to get snacks.
Right? Yes.
And sorry to interrupt, just to jump back to the process, I got to give it up to Nick for here's a guy that. He's one of the funniest guys I know. He's one of the great joke writers in Canada. Yeah. And to go from writing a comedy to writing this, I mean, he's kind of proven to everybody that he's one of the better screenwriters in the country. He's a stud. I mean, who does that? To go from like a ridiculously hilarious, cult classic comedy to something as heavy as this. So,
what was that adjustment like?
We said we wouldn't talk about this, Sean. No. I think there's a couple of moments in the film. Well, I think that's a great question, because the adjustment is actually tricky, because I think in early cuts, I sent Sean cuts, I sent Mary cuts, I sent Eyad cuts. Like, here's a rough cut, here's a rough cut, here's a fine cut, here's another cut, here's a picture, maybe a picture lock. So I think in making those rough cuts, we had to take a lot of jokes out because the tone started getting too jokey and too funny. And
tone matters.
Tone is everything. It's everything in cinema. Mm-hmm. So, early days, we'd have one scene where I go, "Oh, this is really funny," on the door, and then you go, "No, the joke. If you have that joke in, then that just takes the whole, dramatic purpose of the scene out." So we were constantly cutting jokes. We can't help ourselves, and we have a couple of nice moments, but they definitely push story and they push character. But yeah, it was tough to refrain from jokes.
So then, when you watch it, and you mentioned like 6 screenings or something you've sat through. When you watch it and you know that the jokes were there, what feeling do you get from these scenes? Is it accomplishing what you were setting out to?
Absolutely.
And describe what it was.
Because it locks in the semi-darker tone to the film and the more serious tone in the film. Yeah. Because I think sometimes the joke can really tell the audience I'm in a comedy, and then they might not take this moment serious, or they might miss the next moment. So I think sort of endlessly editing and finding and just boiling it down, and then just removing just a couple of jokes. It wasn't a ton, but it was definitely enough to make the film a little bit more serious.
Yeah. What about yourself? So you're seeing it. I mean, Nick sending you stuff every day, and you're looking through it. What was it like?
I'm sorry, Ed. Yeah.
It's like, it's Nik Sexton again. When you were looking at the script and just the tone side of it, what was that process like for you and your feelings around as things progressed?
I enjoyed it. Sometimes was, especially when we did the video call with Jay before he moved to, he came here to shoot the movie. It's a lot of work. I didn't expect it to be this long. I didn't expect it's going to be this intense. But Nik was smart enough to put the right pieces at the right spot and made it very enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. What about there's always cultural differences, right? So the Syrian diaspora, folks who've lived in a community for families for generations. What did you notice many cultural differences, and just having to, even with humor, right? Trying to bridge sometimes of like, oh, we found that funny. It's like, that's not funny at all. Like to some people, what was that part like?
Some jokes, I enjoyed a lot of them actually, and I wish you kept few of them more. But overall, he has a vision, and it fits right in the vision. And yes, with the cultural jokes, I was able to tell him, this is a little bit too much. This is appropriate. This is perfect. So for me to be able to help, I was honored, honestly.
Yeah, we should mention Mira Hamor was a Syrian documentary filmmaker, and she was on that call as well with Jay Abdo, Eyad, and myself, and we did a read through of the film, of the whole film together, and we did this. And Jay was in Los Angeles, and Eyad's right, it was a lot of work, and a lot of notes, and we talked about does this line feel, is this line okay? Are we still in the right tone for the film? And I think too, it's with tone, you're also trying to make sure everyone understands the tone you're trying to achieve together. Like, you got that's a difficult thing to do sometimes when no one has seen the work yet.
There's so much responsibility, like for a film like this, right? To have different aspects of culture and community. And then to really, because I know I knew from before, but this conversation today, understanding the importance you all felt around it, that work to make sure you get it right. Like, how much of a responsibility was that for you around tone, around making sure that when you have Syrian diaspora and you're trying to make a movie like this, to have everyone say, that was a good movie, and they did it right. It's
a huge responsibility. I think that's why I drove Eyad nuts and sent him, script after script and rough cut out. But then he was so good. Like he and his wife would take the time and have like almost like a movie night and watch it. He wouldn't just watch it. He'd like sit and watch it in front of a television and call me or send me their honest notes. Yeah. And same with Sean. Same with Mary. There was a real democratic process when it came to editing this film. I wanted to hear people I trust around me, but in the end, you sort of take those notes and you're going to make your own vision. I mean, it's always going to be your own vision when you write and direct a film.
You're in charge,
of course, yeah. But if there's definitely a huge responsibility to get it right. And I think that's why we had the Arabic screening. And I think that's why we took feedback early on. I think that's why we had test screenings. We had multiple test screenings to make sure, with questionnaires at NIFCO. It wasn't just like, here's the film. This process took years, and as Mary said, it's definitely not for the sake of commerce.
And it was also the trust of the community itself. We were very fortunate. We moved into Chalker Place. The residents of Chalker Place were so kind and generous with their time with us. They have a community center there that the kids hang out in. We use that as our base camp. And you could feel that they took pride in being part of it as well. Like, it was Newfoundlanders and the Syrian families, and they all wanted to participate. They all, wanted to be there to help us. If we had a snowstorm one day, the next thing you know, they're all out helping us shovel, and because we were very low rent and low budget, they helped us wherever they possibly could, which made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And there was that trust with us. They believed us, and as I said, they welcomed us into their homes.
Yeah, we didn't have the financial, abilities to shoot in a studio. Everything was on location. Everything you see in the film is really in a house in Chalker Place or other parts of town. We actually, Eyad, had a business on Labrador Road. He let us use like his upstairs for like a lunchroom, when we shot at Peter Easton Pub. By the way, the help of the owner of Peter Easton Pub, Con Coates, like endless support. Like, yes, we'll help you shoot this. There's a lot of great people when it comes to locations in this town that really want to get involved, but you have to also, like Mary said, earn their trust.
What was the first screening like when you watched it, John?
What was the first screening?
Or the memory you have around when you sat down and be like, okay, this is it. This is the movie. I'm watching this. This is me in the thing that I'm about to be nominated
Atlantic
for.
Film Festival.
Yeah.
Well, I think Tammy, my wife, and I watched it, I think, just on our laptop in Nova Scotia. And I'm watching a completely different movie because I'm analyzing every single nuance every time I'm tweaking my face or doing something. I'm almost not paying attention to the story. I'm just going, okay, how do certain actors pull this off? So I was kind of watching it with a different set of eyes, but when Tammy and I were finished it, we just both looked at each other, and I was like, "Are you unhappy with it?" Because we spent so much time around it. Yeah. And she was like, "No, I'm fine with it." And I was fine with it. I was like, "That's perfect." You know. Yeah. And now when I'm watching it, I'm like, "This is a great movie." You know. But I'm pretty critical myself.
So then, as you're watching, being critical of like what's going through your mind then for the
how I can beat it the next time. You know? The next thing is say, okay, that's why Robert De Niro is awesome at this, and that's why this guy is so good at this, and that's why Christian Bale is amazing at that. Yeah.
So then, I mean, the Screen Award nom must help that process.
Yeah, I guess we did something right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you're being so critical, and yet at the same time, you get this nomination, and it's, I mean, that's spectacular.
I appreciate that.
And you get a standing ovation in Halifax too. People were very taken aback. They were. I think they were a little shocked at how much they really enjoyed the film. I think they thought it was going to be one film, and it turned out to be a different film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you watch Sean's performance on the big screen, there's something in the eyes. Yeah. You know, the performances are always in the eyes, I find, and specifically Sean's portrayal of Billy. I've watched it on a laptop, I've watched it on a phone, I've watched it on TV, I've watched it on the big screen. And I think if you go see this film on the big screen, you really see that performance. There's so many minute little moments in the eyes.
Yeah.
Question: were you for the Arabic screening? Were you nervous?
Of course, yeah. I mean, you know, you're here, you're trying to represent a community. You know, you want to do them right. You don't want to fail them. You don't want it to make it. You don't want to make it cheesy. Yeah. You know, you want it to feel like this. Like I said, this realism, Newfoundland realism, and you want it to have. You want it to be authentic. Mm-hmm. No one wants to be a hack. Mm-hmm. You know, people. You know, I think working with Eyad and Jay and Mira in the pre-production, and I think, you know, sharing notes back and forth, and also sharing cuts with Jay, and I think those moments are what sort of boil down the film into what we have, and I'm very happy with it. Yeah. I mean, like Sean, like any good artist, you know, watches something and they just think about how they can be better next time, and that's I think part of, you know, being an artist is driving yourself crazy,
torturing yourself,
and not offending anybody either. We really wanted to make sure that they felt comfortable, and you know, during the screening of the Arabic screening, you know, all the kids were they were elated because they got to see them. They got dressed up to come to the screening and got to see themselves on the big screen, which, you know, that really turned on a lot of those young all the Syrian little girls were just dressed to the nines. It was like they were walking, and we set up a red carpet for them so that they could go get their picture taken. So making an event, and I think that really showed that we appreciate it, and it was our way of saying thank you.
Yeah, that makes it such a community thing.
Yeah.
Right? To put that extra work in.
Well, because we couldn't have done it without them.
Yeah. So then, after all the notes and everything, and then you're sitting down watching it, then what was that first reaction for you as you were watching it? After you and Caroline, and I work with your wife Caroline Hillier, who's fantastic. So after all those times of review and notes and everything else, what was that final moment like?
Well, I'm lucky to have Caroline in my life because she prepared me to be a better person at this, and she did an amazing job explaining things because everything was raw to me, everything is new, I don't understand the industry. So my wife made the process simple and enjoyable at the same time. But the first time I watched it, I always take notes. I had my notebook ready, and I took so many notes, and I guess Nik was a little bit mad at me because I sent so many notes his way. But at the same time, you're going to tell the stories right, because Nik had vision for the movie, and he wrote it really beautifully. But at the same time, my job, or I felt like I need to do it right so we don't insult nobody. Yeah. So there's a fine line of telling the right story without being too aggressive in, you know, whether a joke or a line. So I felt, I felt it's my job now just to make sure that we are not offending nobody.
Yeah.
I understand the culture, the Canadian culture. Again, I moved here back in 2008, so I'm somehow adjusted to the culture, and I love it. But at the same time, it's, I'm Syrian. So, when you tell a joke, you just got to make sure that you tell it right without insulting nobody.
Yeah, and you're riding that boundary, right? You've got this life of where you grew up and culture, and then the adopted culture that's also your culture now, and that's why you're such a good go-between.
That's correct. And Caroline is from St. Anthony, so when you go up around the, especially when you go around the bay, it's just beautiful, and everyone is so nice and welcoming. But when you adapt to cultures, it's I think it's perfect,
Yeah. So there's about 5 minutes left here on the show. Where do things go for here? So Mary, remind us of the screen. The tickets are available. Tell us again now.
Well,
come on. Jeez, why am I asking this? You're supposed to be selling the movie.
Yeah, that's right. I rattled Cineplex's cage yesterday to get the extra screening, so I definitely want to promote it. 1:40, 4:40, 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. And there's tickets available at 10 p.m. Sorry, is the second screening, and it's in Theatre 3 at Cineplex, and it's good. We have matinees on Saturday and Sunday as well, and then it'll be running throughout the week. And I'm hoping everyone and their dog will come out to see it and get it held over.
And merch table. We got a merch table too.
Oh, we got a merch table too. Yes, we
do. And a 50-50 draw. I'm just joking.
Yeah, the 50-50 is for
50-50 draw.
50-50 is for financing. Chase the Ace. We're going to do that for our next finance our next film.
Right, Skeet 2, right? The sequel on it. Where else does this go after this, right? Because it's St. John's, but
yeah. So we launch on Friday in St. John's, and as Mary said, it's there the whole week, and then we go to Antigonish, where Sean, sort of grew up and has a big following there, and there's a big Syrian community. Peace by Chocolate Company is there.
That's right.
So hopefully Tarek and some of those affiliates will come out, and then we go to Halifax, we go to Toronto, Calgary, Edmonton, and then Vancouver, where Sean and Tammy live now. So that's a full Canadian tour.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah,
yeah.
But I think that's what the film wants to get the word out. Because then of course
Get
it goes on
momentum.
Apple VOD sales after that, and streaming. So I think that's just a great way to get the word out. Because one thing with this film I've noticed, when you sit in an audience in Victoria, where we've been in, an audience in Toronto, the messages are universal. They're not just for Newfoundland. So I think audiences everywhere will appreciate it.
And we should give a shout out to the rest of the cast and crew, because we had a great cast and crew that
Wendy
worked
Smallwood,
with
Kate Corbett.
Yeah. Gary Sexton,
Nigel,
our DOP. God love him.
Yeah. And Larry Barry. There's so many great names. Carter
Steve
Churchill,
Lush.
Pat Dempsey, Steve Lush. There's so many great.
Terry Ryan. Yep.
Yeah, there's a big ensemble. I think
Yeah.
Nate
It's
is
like a
checking
wedding.
the show. Nate
It's
is
like a
checking
wedding.
the show today. Worked on it too, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so many
Yes,
people.
Nate in the back room here.
Nathan Will's back there. He's smiling. He's shaking his head. He's smiling. He's
Yeah.
laughing there. There you go.
Jay Abdo and his wife Fadia plays his wife Fatima in the film as well.
Yeah.
And and Mahmoud, of course, we talked about, and Jackson Petton, who's Sean's nephew.
And Jackson was in it 7 years earlier. Like, you don't realize that the child that is, Billy's son, who's in the, the initial film, and then he's grown up teenager in this film, and it's the same little boy.
Yeah,
well,
the
he's a big
the
boy
film
now.
opens. There's a face of a young man. He's 8 years old, and then 10 minutes later in the film, the same boy is 15 years old.
Yeah.
So that's we love that little nugget. Of,
That's
real.
That's something, right?
Yeah,
To have that
yeah.
on film.
I think a testament to us sticking with the film.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah.
So then, with all this business happening and touring the country and everything else, Mary, what else? Anything else in the future coming for you? What else is happening?
Well, we have a couple of things in the works. I'm still working on a couple of feature films. Actually, I'm doing Anne Budgell's book, Dear Everybody. I'm working with her and Gail Collins on that. And we also have, I shouldn't mention it, I guess, but we're doing Donnie and Brenda, which came out of How to Be Deadly. We're doing that series for Bell 5. And we're also we're hoping to actually work with the Syrian community on another project, a documentary series.
Lots of stuff. Sean,
Yeah.
what are you at? What else you got on the go?
Just hanging out with my buddy Nick here and my wife Tammy, and we're going across the country together.
There you
and
go.
Yeah.
Shout out to my shout out to Chalker Place, by the way.
Yes.
And shout out to my buddies in Vancouver.
And his brother Mike Dalton, who plays his brother
Yes,
in the
absolutely.
film.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And his father, the whole Dalton family really stepped up.
The Dalton gang made it in. Yeah.
There you
But
go.
yeah, but we'll be getting Sean a ticket for the Canadian Screen Awards. I think is June 1st. I think. So yeah. We'll see
All
what
right,
happens.
Canadian Screen Awards. We'll keep our fingers crossed for you on that. And yeah, thanks so much for coming in, buddy.
Thanks for
Vote
having
in,
me.
vote early, vote often.
Vote early, vote often. If you can mark an X. All right, everyone.
My kind of candidate.
That's it for today's show. Thank you. Thanks so much for this.
Thank you for having us.
Good luck with
And
everything.
don't forget, get out to the theater. You won't regret it.
All right, everyone. That's it for today. So thanks for listening. Budget special tomorrow on this show, a budget reaction, I should say, 2 p.m. Island time, half an hour earlier, most of Labrador for the budget today on Radio 1. Chrissy Holmes and the On The Go gang will have full budget coverage and special at 4 p.m. Island time for themselves. Thanks for listening. Cheers.